Hi guys. I'm going to try to go over parts of the test that maybe you have questions on. First off, I want to apologize. There were a few things I messed up on with the test. I guess one was that the acreage is the answer was fine, but my son, who's a math geek, informed me that my triangle is not mathematically possible, and I'm sorry if that threw you off. So hopefully you didn't look too deeply at that triangle and you just used the base and height. So I'll start with that problem, and I'll kind of go through some of these on here and look at what went wrong or what the right answers were. So I explained on here that this isn't possible based on the sides of the hypotenuse, whatever. I don't even know. But anyways, this is how you solve the problem. So I said that I paced off 95 steps on the base, and then this height was 39 steps using this person's pace, which was 22 steps per 100 feet, which equals 100 feet. So the first step was having to change the number of steps into feet. So I just used the simple conversion factor and multiplied 95 times 100 divided by 22, and I got that amount of feet for the base. I did the same for the height, and I got that amount of feet for the height. And then I used the formula half times base times height, and I got that amount of square feet. But then the last step was to change it to acres. And so you had to use the conversion factor that 1 acre is 43560 feet squared. So I set up this with this conversion factor and got 0.87 acres. So that is how I did acreage. Hopefully my messed up triangle didn't throw you off. So the next area was compass. I'll go ahead and open this one. I'll go to preview. So on this one, the first question basically wanted you, it was kind of a weirdly worded question. I get that. But it wanted you to like pretend you had this bearing set at north and you were actually holding the compass and you wanted to walk north. And it was asking you if you were holding the compass correctly in order to walk that bearing. And what you needed to do to actually walk that bearing would be this little red arrow would need to fit into this arrow outline. So the compass isn't held correctly. You'd have to kind of walk around until that movie arrow moved into that. Kind of a dumb question, but it's hard to come up with questions virtually. So the answer for that one was no. This next one, I took a range because it's kind of hard to see. It said, what is this bearing set at? So you know it's past 40. So I didn't take the answer 40, but I took probably 41 to 46. But then you had to change that to bearing reading. So it would have been north 42 east or close enough if you had it somewhere in there. This one, what you had to do in order to solve this one was to set your compass at north. And if you were going from 1 to 11, you would place your north facing compass. It's hard to explain here, but you'd face it. I would put the center right on the 1, and it's north facing. And you'd basically just read the compass dial where this purple line was going through it. And you would have seen it was, I think it was 120 if you're looking at the azimuth reading. And so when you converted that to a bearing reading, it would have been south 60 east. And I took a range there too because it's not perfect. It's hard to do and you're on a computer and you have this weird map that I used. So that was that answer. Same thing with this, except for you're going from 3 to 2. So I just held my compass up north because north, it tells you right here that this is facing north. And then I read where this line was hitting on the, the circle of the compass. And it was coming out, I'm trying to remember. It was coming out, I think, at like 40. Let me grab the answer key right here really quick. It was, it was coming about 60 or 65. So I took a range north, 65 east, but I took a range between like 55 and 65. And then that was it. So that was compass. I will move on to the next one, which, let's see, is map reading. Oh, yeah. So map reading, there are some difficulties here, especially on my township range and section, and I apologize. And I adjusted the grading accordingly. So why don't we just go look at it and I'll talk about it. I sent you the answers, but we'll just go over these. So some of them were, straightforward. I don't know why this isn't showing up, but this first one, it says, what is shown in the blue and white north of the nature center? So in hindsight, I probably should have been a little bit more specific. Here's the nature center right here. This is the area I was talking about. So I probably should have said northwest of the nature center, but this was the blue and white area, and that should have been a freshwater marsh or swamp or marsh. Is that what that symbol stands for? This direction, what direction is the creek flowing? You can tell in the way that the river moves through. So if the V's are pointing in this direction, then the river's flowing in the opposite direction. So the river was flowing east. Sometimes you can tell from elevation, but you can't. Well, yeah, if you followed these lines, you would see that this was 9,800 feet up here, and this was 9,000 down here. So that's another way you could tell. This next one, you just had to find the index line, which is, I can't see because my vision's so bad, but I think it's like 5800 right there. And then there was a 40-foot interval. So if you add 40, 80, and another 40, if you add 120 to 5800, you get 5920. So that was that answer. This one, it looks like this index line was 6600, and the 40 contour interval. Oh, this one just asked you what the contour interval was. So some of you actually did what I was just doing and telling the elevation, but you just wanted to say 40, that there was 40 feet between each line. So now this is asking you what the elevation is. So it was 6,600, but then you add 3 lines, each with 40 foot. So that put it at 6,720. And then we get to these ones. So these are the ones that I actually adjusted the way I graded. And some of you got it exactly like I did, but because you're not in person, it's a little difficult to try to, and I kind of picked areas that were kind of right on the borderline. So if you were to cut this section for this first one in force, it's quite obvious that it's in the one, this northwest corner. But then when you go to cut this one, I mean, here's the mine right there. When you go to cut this one, I got northwest 1/4, but it's right on the borderline there. So I decided after grading many of these that for this event, I'm just going to drop the first quarter, the smaller quarter, because I did a really horrible job of picking spots that were like right on the line and really not easy to determine. And when you're not in person, that makes it extra hard. So same with this one, section 26, northwest, the 1/4 northwest. And then again, if you look at where I cut it, Yeah, it's right on the line. So we dropped that. So I'm not going to go over each of these individually, because you can just look at the key. But I also, wrote here because it was hard to see, but anything above this line was in Township 14N. Anything east of this line was in Range 11E. And then west of this line, Township 10E, and below 13N. So we'll just kind of look at a couple of these that were a little bit more challenging. This one wasn't. It was in the same. It was Township 14N, Range 11E, Section 26 in the northwest corner. This one, same thing, nothing different really. But then some people on the Horseshoe Bar one down here forgot to notice that it's in a different township because it's below this line. And so that was one that people missed. And then the challenge one, a few of you got it, and I'm very impressed by you. It was this regulating reservoir here. And this was more confusing because this is a different township over here. So it would go like 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and then 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30. So you would have had to realize that since this was the township next to it, this wouldn't be 18. 18 would actually be above 19 right here. And if you were looking on a real map, it would be much easier. But this is actually the end of this row here in the neighboring township. And so, like I said, you have 6 square miles in each township. And so this went to 24. So this one also over here would go to 24. So that might not make sense to you right now. Just ask your teacher and hopefully they can explain it with a real map if you don't know what I'm talking about. All right, so let's move on to the next test. Oh, whoops, I have to go back to here. So the next one is knowledge, which self-explanatory. Just look up the definitions. I'll go to graph and table. So the graph and table one, pretty straightforward, but I'll go over some of the harder ones. So this one, you just needed to take the average. And for height, it was 112. Here, you had to take the average of age, and I think it was 80. I don't remember offhand. I think it was 88. Pretty 100% sure it was 88. Okay. And then the site value one. So you had to, I think some of you mixed up which side you were doing it. So you had to go to 88 here. And it worked for me best if I put like a piece of paper at 88 so I could follow a straight line up. And then you had to go over here to 110. And where those two lines intersected, 88, 110. It intersected pretty much right on this 120 line, but I did take a range up a little bit higher and a little bit lower from 120 because it's hard to do on a computer. Okay, next one was just doing these volume tables. And I gave you the tree height. So remember a 16-foot log, you first had to divide 64 by 16. So I believe 64, that is 4. So then you had 4 logs with 16-inch diameter for 16, and that puts you at 265. The next one, you had 88 feet, so you had to divide 16 into 88, which I don't remember what it is right now. I should have pre-done this, huh? It's probably 5. Let's see, 5. Yeah, 5.5 logs, and then it's at a 30 dBH. So if I go 5.5 and 30, the answer is 1,515. And the last one, 40 feet. So that would be 16 goes into 42 and a half logs. So then 24 inches, 2.5 logs, 2.5, 24 is 515. So that was pretty straightforward. I didn't make any mistakes on that one. All right, next one is tree height. All right, so with this one, you had to look at, this clinometer one. So this one was tricky because of the distance. So if you look at this, you guys, a lot of you got 140, which if this was 100 feet, that would be the right answer. So basically you had to add the 124 here to the 16 here to get 140. But because we had only walked out 50 feet, you have to times 140 times 50%, or the decimal 0.5, which brings the answer to 70. So the answer there was 70. This Biltmore stick one, we can look at it. I stole this video from the Forest, or didn't steal it. I borrowed it from the Forestry Challenge, if you've participated in that. But you had to kind of look at it to the very end to really be able to read what she was doing. So I will just skip it here till the end. She does a lot of walking. Okay. Now, like, she's starting to hold up the Biltmore stick. You still can't see it right away. So she's showing you that it's there. So I would you keep looking. It's hard to see here, and you're like, I can't see this. This is horrible. But you be patient, maybe. I feel like she shows you again. Oh, no, she doesn't. So it is horrible. It's a horrible, horrible slide. But if you made it bigger, you should have been able to see it right about here. And you might have needed to make it bigger on your screen. But it was 4 logs, which was hard to see. So I'm sorry about that. It wasn't perfect. But yeah, that one was 4. So let's go back to diameter. So diameter wasn't quite as hard to see. So with this one, the grading for you can be 2 inches off and only lose 1 point. So it's pretty easy grading there. So this one is also another video. Once again, you can skip ahead if the video will load. It might not load right now. Yeah, it's not loading. Oh, here we go. So you skip ahead to her holding the Biltmore stick. She's showing you that she's doing it at diameter at breast height, and that she's going 25 inches away from the tree, which you need to do. And now she's holding the Biltmore stick. And you see the first side. Oh, my thing is so small. Let me go big screen. You see the first side is about 15 or 14. So I see that's 14. And then I feel like she goes to the other side. Yes. So then she goes to the other side, because you should do 2 sides. And that is about 15 or a little bit more. So a good answer would have been 14 and a half. And you got a range there. So you got a big distance there. So that one was pretty flexible. This is with a DBH tape, watching a video, just reading it. We can open it up and look at it.
This oceanside verbo is about to become
now we're watching a commercial.
application memory.
Skip.
One of the rare.
Okay. So I think I said to skip to a certain point in this video where she's actually doing the D-tape. So hopefully you didn't sit and watch the whole video. She's making sure it's even. She's making sure it's at 4.5 feet. And now she's holding it there and it's 15.3 exactly. All right, I'm going to turn that off. So then just using images to determine it, this one was 35.9. This was another Biltmore stick, kind of a weird, a little different looking one, but it was about 6.6. But there was a decent range that was taken there. So we'll move on to the next quiz. So now we're to log scaling, and I'm just going to open up an answer key to this and kind of explain it. So this is the first log, and the first step I did was down here. I saw that this log was at least 2 segments, and so I needed to subtract the trim. So I subtracted 1 foot of trim, so that left a log that's 32.7 feet long. I broke that log into 2 logs, each of 16 feet. If you have a choice, I would choose 16 feet, not like 20, 12. So I did 2 16-foot logs. So that's the length, but now I needed to do the diameter. So I started with this one and got the average of this. So if I rounded that up to 15 and then took the average of these two lists, so that would be 15.5, but then you're going to drop that half, and that puts it at a 15-inch diameter. So then I used the decimal. Well, I'll wait to do the decimal C chart. And then on this one, I needed to find, since this is not a butt log, I also needed to find the diameter of this end. So I did 22.2 and 20, and I got an average of 21, rounding down. But in order to find the correct scaling diameter of this 16-foot log, I needed to find the middle diameter. And I'm going to get that by taking the average of this side and this side. So 21 plus 15 divided by 2 is 18. So basically that's my scaling diameter. So this log, or segment, sorry, is a 16-foot log with an 18-inch diameter. So then when I go to my decimal C chart, I will pull that up in a second. But I got 21 here, or 210, and I got 35, or 350. And when I added all my board feet together, then I got 350 total. So sorry, I got 14 here. And then when I added the 21 and the 14, I got 35 decimal C, or 350 board feet for that one. I can just pull up really quick the decimal C chart just to show you where I got those numbers in case you're not sure. Well, I could pull it right here. Hold on. Sorry, I should have pulled this up before. Well, okay, so here's the scale I'm talking about. So I had a 20-foot log with, let's look back, I forgot already. I had a 16-foot log with 18 inches for one of my segments, my bigger segment. So if I look on here, a 16-foot log with 18 diameter, 18, 60 foot, that gives me 21 right there. And I'm going to add that to a 16-foot log with a 15-inch diameter. So 16 with a 15-inch, that gives me 14. 21 plus 14 is 35, add a 0, 3,500 board feet. Okay, so I'll move on to the next one, the butt log one. So this one, I started with a log that was 41.4 feet. It's 2 segments, so I'm going to subtract 1 foot of trim, and it's 40.4. Then I needed to find the small end diameter. So since this is close enough to 25, I rounded up to 25. Plus 23 divided by 2 is a 24-inch diameter. Since this is a butt log, to get the middle diameter, I'm just going to, and it's between 22 and 38 foot long log, I'm going to add 2 inches of taper to get this middle diameter, and that's going to put the diameter for this second log at 26. So I'm left with a 20-foot log with a 26 diameter. When I use it on the chart, I get 62 decimal C, and then I have a 20-foot log with a 24 diameter, and when I use it on a chart, I get 50 decimal C. Add it together, I get 112, or add a 0 on it, 1,120 board feet. All right, so that's that one. We're almost done. I know this is long. Oh gosh, I'm going back to here. So the last one was the team event, the basal area. And I have a key right here for the basal area. So the first question was really the one that caused the most problems. So it said, we have 6 in-trees with the 20 basal area factor prism, and you have 1 borderline tree, and that has a diameter of 12.4 and a distance of 24 feet. So you had to use a limiting distance table. So let me pull that up really quick. So you may have used the limiting distance table, but there was a kind of a tricky part to it that even threw my students off. Threw most everyone off. A couple people got it. So looking at this table, you have to use, for that borderline tree, you got to use the DBH. And so we said the borderline tree had a DBH of 12.4. So because this is a whole number 12, I can take this number 23.33 as my distance. But I have to go up here to this 0.4 and add on 0.78 to the 23.33. So let me go back to the key. So I get the 23.33, add 0.78, and I get 24.11 feet. What that actually means is, as long as the tree is located less than 24.11 feet, you can count it in. And so our tree was 24 feet even, so it's an in tree. And so 7 in trees times 20 basal area factor is 140 basal area factor. So that was that question. Let me go to question number 2. The rest of these were pretty straightforward. So this tree's out because it's not connected at all to the other part of the tree. This is a variable radius plot. The prism needs to be over the plot center, and if it's a snag, you do not count it because you're counting live trees. So that was it. I think, plants and tool ID and wood ID are pretty self-explanatory. I would just look at the tree and look at what you missed in the right answer and try to see why you got the right answer. I mean, I could go through the plants. So maybe I'll go through them and give you just ways we remember them. And if you want to watch it, you can. If you don't want to watch it, just end this video. So I'll do the preview, I guess. So if any of you up to this point, like if you're teachers or you guys see something I've done horribly wrong, which is quite possible, let me know and I can adjust scores. So this first one, there's no real tricks, I don't think, to remember chemise. Nothing else really looks like it. It's just got those small little tiny leaves. The next one is coffee berry. There's different versions of coffee berry, different subspecies, but the one thing that's very common between them is these really prominent veins right here, kind of like parking spaces. Coyote brush has teeth on it like coyotes. That's the way we remember that. This is Pacific dogwood. I don't have any tricks to remember it. I mean, you see it a lot when you're outside. If you see it in person, it's easier. This is canyon live oak because of the white underneath. It's the only oak that's very white underneath. This has 2 needles. You only have 2 trees with 2 needles, so this one is your lodgepole pine. You only have a few that have thorns. I think it's like wild rose, mountain white thorn, maybe thimbleberry, but this one's wild rose. The leaves are very unique. This is kind of a dried out version, so it could have been more difficult. This is redbud without any leaves, but these seed pods are pretty identifiable. Valley oak just has these big valleys, but not pointy ends like black oak would have. Fremont cottonwood, it's got a flat bottom, unlike black cottonwood or aspen. This is red cedar. Don't have a good way to help you know that. This is aspen. It was pressed, so not your best picture of aspen. This is giant sequoia. It's a pretty unique plant. You can tell this one by the cone. You can't really see that you can see it has 5 needles, 5 short needles. So it could potentially be sugar pine, but the cone gives it away that it's western white pine. Harder to see from a picture than in person. It does have 3 long needles. It's gray pine. Gray pine just looks a lot scraggly and a lot more scraggly is the word I use, and like droopy than a ponderosa. And it has longer needles than a lot of your other 3 pines besides Tory. This would be wild grape, and it's pretty unique with very waxy, thick leaves and the pointy ends. This is just the seed pod of Monterey cypress. Blue oak, much smaller leaves than valley oak, much less deep valleys. Sometimes has a bluish color. Sometimes the newer ones are kind of green, so it can be tricky. This is a pressed of sticky monkey flower. There aren't a lot of flowers in this competition, so that one's fairly easy. This is interior live oak, and not harder to tell when you don't have it in person because you're not seeing the underside of the leaves, but there's no white on the underside of the leaves as there is with canyon. Bracken fern, sideways picture of tan oak, but we like to remember tan oak because it has such prominent veins. It kind of looks like 6-pack of a really tan person. I don't know. That's stupid, but that's how I remember it. This is sycamore. It's not the best picture because it's all kind of clobbed on each other, but you can look at these leaves down here and see that they are the lobe like sycamore, and then that should give it away. It's seed pod. Bay laurel, and if you were in person, very easy to recognize. You can smell it. See, that one's even bent there. Let's see. This is blue elderberry. It's very droopy when it's in person and cut off, and it has the flowers here, so that makes it easier. This is single leaf pinyon pine, and if you look at the the pines, there's only one needle that comes off of it. I do not have a way for you to remember that one. This is white. I'm pretty sure it's white fir. Don't have a way for you to remember this one. This is California juniper. Pretty unique. It has the juniper berries. This is red fir. More upright, shorter needles. If you look at them close up, they look like hockey sticks. This is coastal live oak. We like to look at like the leaves kind of curl in a little bit like a boat you could ride on the coast. Sitka spruce is pretty unique in how it comes off the needles like that. I don't know. This is mountain whitethorn. And this is Port Orford cedar, which is pretty unique from the other cedars. I know this one, but I'm spacing out right now. I totally know this. Oh, Yerba Santa. That's what this one is. It looks really sticky and stiff. I don't know. It's found in a lot of brushy areas. This is just currant, pretty unique leaves that will help you identify that. Buckbrush, there's no teeth on the leaves. They're very smooth. This one has a white flower, so it makes it pretty recognizable. This is madrone, but it's hard to tell in this picture because of the size of it, but it is madrone. And this is paper birch, and I like to see with all this serration, it's like it can cut you like a paper cut. Mountain mahogany, if you look at the leaves, they're kind of shell-like. I have a really dumb way to remember this, but I won't say it because it probably won't make sense to anyone. And my students mock me for doing it. This is buckeye. The leaves are in fives like that whorled. It's pretty obvious. This is Torrey pine, which this is a picture because I don't have a sample of Torrey pine, but it's got super long needles of 3 found in Southern California. And this is a cone from Coulter pine. Pretty unique. Sometimes it could be confused with gray pine. I think they look similar, but this is just more substantial, bigger, harder to tell in the online test. This is yew and this is nutmeg. Harder also to tell in online, but it has very pointy ends, and then it has the seed right there. And alder, white alder, smaller leaves, and these are pretty recognizable. This is a tricky picture of Doug fir. So you could hopefully tell it was kind of bottle brushed there on the edges, but a little bit tricky. And this is deer brush. If you can tell the 3 veins, it's a ceanothus. I probably say that wrong, but that's how we're able to identify that one. And last but not least, a pressed version of Monterey pine. So it's kind of hard to tell that that's 2 needles of 3. I'm not sure why I put 2 right together so it looks like a whole bunch of needles, but the cone is fairly recognizable. So that's it on that one. I'm not going to go through the tool ID or the wood ID. I probably have nothing that can help you on that because I'm not very good with the wood ID. So hopefully that helped you. Like I said, if you have any problems or concerns about how I graded it, first time doing it, potentially messed up. So please feel free to contact me. Thanks, and thanks for participating.